Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you would mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate that immensely. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, or if you have a suggestion, or constructive criticism, or just want to tell me about the way you do things, I always like to hear those sorts of things. I like how everybody does things a little bit differently, and I always learn something new. So I have this really pretty blue Trillion Topaz faceted stone, and I've been wanting to use it in something. And I found this kind of cool looking design that looked like, I think it's an antique, sometime mid-century modern, 40s or 50s, somewhere in there. A diamond and emerald piece online somewhere, and I thought it was really pretty. And I thought I could do something kind of similar to it, so I'm going to try to do that. It's kind of swirly, and the design itself becomes part of the bail as it loops over the chain. It's going to require some filing and shaping of a piece of low dome half round wire, so I may have to do quite a bit of filing on it. But it should be a pretty piece. I'm going to make a little 6-prong setting for the Trillion with a kind of a base for it to sit on, which will hold those prongs. Well, we'll see how it turns out. I think it's going to be a pretty one. We'll give it a shot. Before we do, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I think they're marvelous. They've created this wonderful environment over there, and I'd like to welcome a new one. I think it's Lysis or Lysis P. Thank you for signing up. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. I do appreciate you signing up, and I think you'll find that there's a great group of people over there you can tap into for information and or share knowledge and resources. So thanks for signing up, and thanks to my previous patrons as well. The other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 18,900, I think. I lose track, but that's a lot, and that blows me away, so thanks for that. I do really appreciate the nice input from people. It's great when people tell me that they're getting something from this, because it makes it worth my while if people are learning things, so thanks for that. And I do also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. That really helps with the cost of materials these days. So, all right, well, let's get started on this project. This is a couple of my design idea books you can get on my merch store if you're interested. The one I'm using right now has a conversion chart on the back that's pretty useful. It's got fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, and I use that all the time. This one here has American wire gauge to inches to millimeters, and I know a lot of people overseas don't use wire gauges, so if I mention a wire gauge and don't mention the millimeter equivalent, it's kind of handy to have this. But either way, they have these great grid patterns in them, and you can set up each page for a project like I have, and then you end up with a record of what you've made, as well as a nice place to draw up your ideas. This one's almost full. I'm going to have to break out a new one pretty soon. Here we go. Okay, this is today's project. Okay, so here's the topaz that I have. It's about a 9mm Trillion Topaz, if you're unfamiliar with trillions. It's a cut of stone that's like a triangle, but it's slightly rounded on the sides. So I think they're very pretty. Here's what I have in mind, and this is very similar to the one that I saw online. The one I saw online had diamonds going all the way across here, and this was an emerald. So this is very similar, but I'm going to do it out of silver, and I'm going to make it from scratch here with no diamonds. But I think it'll still be very pretty. I'm going to put a little 6-prong setting here with kind of a bottom on it that this rests on, and those prongs will be around each corner there. For the main body of the piece, I'm going to use number 4 low dome half round wire from Rio, which is 5.89 millimeters. And I'm going to like I said, I'm going to have to do a lot of filing on it. It's going to be widest up here, taper down to either end from there. And then we're going to try and get it to swirl around itself and attach it to this. So that's going to take a lot of filing, so we'll see how that goes. The setting itself should be relatively simple. We're going to make a 3-sided rounded triangle that's just about the same size as the stone. We'll put in 6 prongs and solder them to it, and that'll be ready to go, and then we just need to attach the thing to this over here, and then we should be ready to pickle. I'm going to use 18 gauge sheet for these. I cut a little strip of 18 gauge sheet that's about, oh, I don't know, it's about 4 millimeters tall. 18 gauge is 1.02 millimeters thick. I'm going to use 18 gauge round wire for the prongs. That's also 1.02 millimeters thick. And I think that's about everything. So to start with, let's make the setting for this guy. And I'm going to start by shaping this, and on the sharp corner areas I'm going to file a notch in here and bend it so I can get it a nice sharp corner. We're going to try and get it just the same size. So we want to not do a corner where the two ends meet though, so I'm going to meet it in the side somewhere. So I'm going to start by filing a notch a little ways in after I file the end flat. You can use your miter vise jig if you have one of those for this. They're handy. Thanks to everybody who voted on the last video. I made some kind of crown looking settings, and I thought it would be fun to let you guys decide which one I used for the stone. And so we'll do that. That's only part way down, kind of towards the middle of the side of that, like that. I used the corner there. This is going to allow me, once I have it curved a little bit like this, to kind of get an estimate where that next notch needs to be, right about there. That needs to be squeezed a little bit closer together. I think we're in the ballpark here. In order for this to solder well together, we need to have them kind of pushing together a little bit. Try and get them to springing towards each other a skosh. If you're new to my channel, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder for most things. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model, and it's their acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air through these little holes and mixes with the gas. So it's hotter than a propane torch or a butane torch, but it's not as hot as an oxyacetylene. But it's just great for silver work. So, okay. I use a #1 tip also. This is another question a lot of people ask me. Okay, so let's cut some solder. I think first I'm going to solder the side closed, and then we can solder these after I shape it a little bit. So let's do that. If you want, you can either just place a piece of solder if you want. I usually pick solder stuff. If you're interested in learning about pick soldering, I have a good video about it up there, so check that out. Add a little bit just to make sure we got a good solid place in. Let's cool that off. The reason I decided to wait until I shaped it was because this side wasn't, curved quite as much as the other two. So let's see if we can just bend that slightly. I think that's pretty close. Probably file it a little thinner in order to get it closer to the edge of the stone. So I might do that real quick. Okay, let's see if we can find a nice sort of flattish surface on my magnesia block. Probably getting to be time to order a new one here. This is not looking very flat. I think I'm going to make, out of some 18 gauge round wire, I'm going to make 3 staple shaped pieces that I can just push down into that pad. Let me find some 18 gauge. Cut them about 30 millimeters or so. Let's see how close I was on my guess. I got about 29. That was close. Not bad. I'm going to spend a minute getting these straight. Alright, let's find relatively close to the center here. Right where that is. Bend these down on either side like this. This is my plan anyway. Something's triggered my allergies today. Oopsie. I need to find a better surface here than this one. Let me see if I can clean this up a little bit on one spot. Okay, I took a brick and I just rubbed it on the brick. Let's push that down like that. Oh, you know what? I never did solder those ends closed. Let's solder those closed really quick, and we'll do that. I was getting ahead of myself there a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give that a try. See how that works. We'll flux it and just pick a little solder in there. You could sweat some solder onto the outside of this or the wires themselves if you wanted to, I suppose. That's probably good enough. They're all attached. They're all reasonably in the right spot. So let's cut the bottom off of that. Looks like they soldered all the way to the bottom. Let's see what this is going to look like. Of course, I'll cut those before we set the stone so I can lay them over, but that looks like it'll work okay. So now we got to make the band part that goes around the chain, and I cut this piece of number 4 low dome half round, which is half round wire that is not a perfect half cylinder. It's actually flatter and wider, so it's still curved on top, but we need to the one thing we need to do is I kind of measured to about where that would be, the top part here, And so I think I want to taper it down from there to over here, and then from here relatively quickly down to pretty skinny to go around this part here. So I'm just basically going to file to make it narrower. And it's going to take quite a bit of filing. I will also smooth it out so it ends up coming to looking clean and neat and tapered nicely. Okay. I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole thing, so I'll come back after I get each side done. So I'll be right back. Okay, I've got this tapered down a little bit. So sometimes when I need to bend something sideways against the way that it wants to bend, like thick wire like this, if you hold it down like this and use leverage, you can get a little bend going on there. That's kind of what I wanted for right here. So now I need to taper this other side quite a bit narrower, actually, I think. And I may kind of taper it into a square. We'll see. But either way, we'll keep going on this. I'm just going to file this other side now, so it's just going to take me another 15 or 20 minutes. All right, I'll be back in a second. Okay, just to show you, I kind of have this filed into a shape that I wanted. I actually thinned it out a little bit right here where it's going to bend because it's pretty thick wire. And if we're going to turn that into our bail, I thought it might be a little bit easier. But I think first, I was originally going to bend this into shape first, but I think I'm going to put that, well, no, I think I better shape it first, because I don't know if this is the right length for what I wanted it to be. So let's go ahead and bend it like that. I think I'm going to use this, my bail making pliers. I'm going to grab my nylon jog pliers just to give me something to hold on to this with. I think this is going to have to lay down a little flatter. That's pretty close. So I think we need to cut this off kind of parallel with that. Side right there. Okay, I think I'm going to solder it on there. I think, I don't want to risk messing up those prongs, so I'm going to use maybe some medium paste solder just to keep anything from going where I don't want it to go. I used to always use hard solder for everything, but I'm kind of getting over that, I guess. That looks pretty good. Maybe I should apply some first, though, before I... Occasionally people ask me if you need to use flux with this, and from my understanding you really don't, and I haven't had any problems now. But it wouldn't hurt you to use some flux if you needed to. There's a lot of mass in this big band part, not as much in the prong setting. So I'm going to spend most of the heat on the bigger piece to try and get it up to temperature, because it's going to take a little longer to reach that temperature. Let's cool that off and see if it's on there. Oh, that's pleasing, I think. I think that's a good angle. So hopefully you can see that. Alright, so I'm going to let that pickle, and then we'll polish it up, and we'll set that stone, and call it a day. Okay, well, did some polishing up. The only part I had trouble with was right in here, right underneath that little wave, and that I kind of expected to be a problem, but everything else polished up okay. I cut the tops of these and straightened them up, and then I cut a little bevel on the inside using a little ball burr just to kind of give it a little dip. Now we're going to place the stone in there. That looks pretty good. There's one side of the stone a little straighter than the other. Let's try turning it one more. Oopsie. I think that looks pretty good. So I think we'll go with that. It looks like it's sitting in there okay. So I do this probably different than some others, but I'm just going to start by making sure that those little prongs are relatively straight up and down. I'm going to start moving them in slightly. Make sure the stone is staying positioned where I want it to stay. Gradually tighten these up against the stone. They're going to start bumping into each other because I made them a little bit longer than they needed to be. At which point we're going to cut them a little bit shorter, but probably not to the final length until we have them laid down flat against the stone a little better. That's a really pretty stone. so I am going to cut them off. So about midway up the girdle facets, which are the ones that are between the table facet up here and the girdle of the stone, which is the widest part. So usually cut those about midway up. Like that. Maybe a little further down. So we'll do that all the way around. I need to do some adjusting in another position. Yeah, this one needs to be cut off a little bit shorter. And so once I work my way all the way around, I will be taking my Dremel with an abrasive knife edge white wheel to kind of shape these down very, very carefully so I don't hit the stone, and then smooth them out with a fine blue polishing wheel. So after that, we'll just be getting some pictures. That's pretty close to what I was looking for. So we'll put that on a chain and get some pictures at the end. All right, well that was a Trillion Blue Topaz swirly pendant. I'm not sure what to call it, but for now that's what we're going to call it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. I'd love it if you take a moment and go check out my main channel page. I have over 450 videos. I've been making them for 3 years now at 3 per week. So there's quite a bit of content, and I think you're almost certain to find something else you like over there. So check those out, watch a bunch of videos. After you watch a few, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links there. If you want to get yourself one of those design idea books that I mentioned at the beginning, those are available on my merch store, and there's a link there. If you want to check out my ebook that I just finished in January for last year's video tutorials, it's a guide to those. Includes extra information as well as links right to the videos. And I did 170 projects last year, or so, somewhere around there. So there's a lot of information in that ebook that you can access pretty readily. So get one of those for yourself. And there's also a link to my Patreon if you want to check out that community. It's a great place over there with a lot of nice people. So thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.